Please subscribe and like this video and listen to my story till the end and let me know which city you're listening from. That way, I can see how far my story has traveled. I never expected Christmas dinner to feel like a betrayal. The rain fell in fat drops against the front window of my parents' tiny living room, turning the world outside into a blur of gray misery. I stood in that doorway, wet coat clinging to me like regret, listening to my family quietly conspire around the old oak dinner table. My name is Alexa Rivers, and what I heard behind that cracked door shattered something inside me. My older brother-in-law, Ethan, was talking with that smug, self-satisfied tone of someone who believes every favor is a right. "Harper doesn't need her luxury loft sitting empty," he said, voice rising over the hum of the heater. "We could host the baby there. And it's not like she lives there most of the year anyway." I felt the breath freeze in my lungs. My heart didn't pound, my stomach didn't flip. It just sank with the cold precision of disappointment. Inside, my sister Harper dabbed at her eyes, playing the helpless role she'd perfected since high school. My parents, Victor and Elaine, nodded along. They weren't even hiding it anymore. They were planning to move into my space, my home that I'd poured years of work and every saved cent into, as if it were theirs for the taking. For a moment, I just stood there, soaked and silent, letting the edges of their voices wash over me. They sounded so sure, so entitled, like generals dividing spoils after a war I didn't even know I was losing. What would you have done in that moment? Comment your reaction and let me know where you're watching this from. I want to see how far the story travels. They didn't hear me at first. They were too busy discussing paint colors and furniture arrangements like property developers with zero empathy. As each sentence unfolded, I felt this strange calm settle over me. Not anger, not panic, just a chilling clarity. Every slight, every unreturned birthday text, every time they asked for money as if I existed purely to give, all of it clicked into place. I straightened my shoulders, wiped the last of the rain from my hair, and walked in. "Merry Christmas," I said, smiling with all the warmth of a winter wind. They froze, faces catching between surprise and guilt for a flicker of a second, enough for me to see right through them. My mother rushed forward, voice trembling with forced cheer. "We didn't think you'd be here yet. Traffic must have been terrible." I let her hug me, but her embrace felt like squeezing a cotton pillow full of stones. Awkward, familiar, and cold. The house smelled thickly of pot roast and damp sweaters. Photos lined the walls, picture after picture of my sister Harper shining under every spotlight, every milestone celebrated like she was the sun, and I was just background scenery. I wasn't on those walls. My achievements didn't decorate their home. But my condo, oh yes, that was the jewel they were carving up. I sat at the table, placed my hands quietly in my lap, and let them talk. Their words tried to wrap themselves in concern, but each syllable cut closer to home. They weren't asking, they were taking for granted. Victor gave me that calculating look, like I might be bluffing. "So, about the baby and our space situation." I watched him talk, watched the way his eyes darted when he thought I wasn't looking. And in that moment I decided something huge, something that would change everything. But before I tell you what happened next, you'll never guess how I responded to their bold request, and what I did that completely changed the direction of this story. Stay tuned for part 2. I smiled just slightly. Of course. The baby. Of course you need a calm space. Harper's eyes lit up instantly with performative hope, and Ethan leaned forward, clearly thinking I was caving. My mother gave this pleased little sigh, the kind that made her look almost saintly. It was theatrical, a family reunion dressed in the costume of goodwill, while underneath, they were laying siege. "You're such a blessing to us, Alexa," Elaine said, placing her hand gently on mine like I was her savior, not her daughter. And I let them talk. The words were familiar, so familiar they didn't even sting anymore. Just while Harper recovers from delivery, Ethan was saying, 3 months max. Maybe 4. You'll be in Tokyo, right? It'd be a waste not to use the place. A waste. That's what my home, my haven, my one piece of peace in this whole chaotic world had become to them. A waste. I sipped the lukewarm water they'd offered me in a chipped mug and nodded along like I was truly considering it. What they didn't realize, what they never realized, was that I had already made my decision. My loft wasn't just a condo. It was the only thing in my life that reflected me. Every inch of it, from the hand-sanded beams to the soundproofed office I'd built with my own 2 hands, was a symbol of everything I had endured, worked for, sacrificed. They weren't just moving in. They were planning to erase me. Engagement break. If you were in my shoes, sitting there while your family schemed over your future like you didn't exist, what would you do? Drop it in the comments, and let's talk about boundaries. Ethan smiled at me like the deal was sealed. You're the best, Alexa. You won't even notice we're there. And if something gets scuffed or whatever, we'll totally fix it before you get back. He took a casual swig of beer in my parents' home during a family dinner like this was his house already. That's when I stood up. I'll leave the keys under the mat, I said, calm and smooth. The 28th, right before I fly. You'll have the whole place to yourselves. The look on their faces was priceless. Elaine teared up with gratitude. Harper gave a dramatic sigh of relief and placed a hand on her swollen belly, like she'd just been blessed by a guardian angel. Ethan? He leaned back, smug, already moving and mentally. I reached into my purse and pulled out the wine I had brought, a beautiful bottle of Barolo I'd been saving for months. I had planned to offer it as a gesture of peace. Now? It felt more like the final toast at a goodbye party they didn't realize they were throwing. To family, I said, raising the glass. They clinked their own together, toasting their imagined victory. And me? I was already preparing for war. What they didn't know, what none of them saw coming, was that by the time they stepped foot into that condo, it would no longer be mine. In part 3, I'll tell you exactly how I flipped the entire game on them and vanished without a trace. You do not want to miss what happens next. The night after Christmas, I didn't sleep. I didn't cry either. I wasn't heartbroken. I was awake, wide awake, with clarity sharper than glass. This wasn't the first time they had taken from me. Not money, not just emotional labor. My 20s were gone, replaced with emergency transfers, quiet yes to loud you owe us demands. And for what? A sister who saw me as a bank account with shoes. A brother-in-law who burned my savings chasing startup fantasies. Parents who clapped for Harper's baby shower but blinked right past my promotion to director. I wasn't their daughter anymore. I was a default setting for their failures. So I made a call. Not to a friend. Not to a therapist. To Julian Reddick, a venture capitalist I knew from a high-stakes risk strategy deal 2 years ago. Cold, brilliant, and just dangerous enough to understand exactly what I needed. Alexa Rivers, he said, voice smooth as dark liquor. What a late surprise. I have a property for sale. Pioneer Square. You've seen it. He laughed. You once told me that place was your soul. What changed? It turned into a liability, I said. 360 cash. No negotiation. A pause. Under market, he replied, intrigued. What's the catch? We close in 48 hours, I said. And demolition begins December 28th, 10 a.m. sharp. Gut the entire unit. Walls down, floors stripped, plumbing exposed. I want it unlivable by lunch. Alexa, you want me to destroy a historic restoration? No. I want you to remodel, I replied. I've heard you hate exposed brick. Make it white. Make it bland. Just make it fast. There was a silence on the line, then the rustle of movement. He was in. I'll wire the deposit tonight. Click. That was it. A single call. I had officially removed myself from their equation. They thought they'd won. That I'd hand over my home and come back to find it full of baby toys, their footprints covering the floors I scrubbed with a toothbrush. They didn't know they were walking into a demolition zone. Engagement break. Have you ever walked away from someone who used you until there was nothing left? Share your story below. Or just comment me too if you've been the backbone no one thanked. You are not alone. I spent the next 48 hours dismantling my life like a covert agent. I didn't pack like someone going on a trip. I packed like someone disappearing. Every piece of real art, every hand-woven rug, the proprietary server racks that stored my contracts, All of it was moved into climate-controlled storage under a newly formed LLC they'd never trace. By the afternoon of the 26th, the place was echoing. But I wasn't going to leave it empty. Oh no, that would be too kind. They expected comfort. They get a stage set made of misery. I drove to the back corner of the city, the Goodwill outlet where broken furniture went to die. I bought the worst pieces I could find. A lumpy sofa that smelled like wet dog and betrayal. A wobbly table with legs that buckled if you looked at it wrong. Mattresses with springs that bit back. A coffee maker that dripped like a leaky faucet in a nightmare. I staged it, down to the scratched cutlery and mismatched plates. I left them exactly what they thought they deserved, a fully furnished place to rot. And then, the cherry on top. I walked into the master bedroom, the one Harper had already laid claim to, and stacked 4 boxes neatly on the closet shelf, wrapped in gold paper. Elegant, ribboned. One for each of them. Victor, Elaine, Harper, Ethan. They would think they were welcome gifts. Inside, evidence, receipts, credit statements, debt notices. For every dime I ever quietly paid off in their name. For every lie they told while I covered their disaster. I wasn't just walking away from my home. I was cutting the cord, finally, painfully, perfectly. In part 4, they move in thinking they've won the lottery, only to meet demolition crews, unpaid debts, and a reckoning they never saw coming. And trust me, you will want to see how it all falls apart. December 28th, 10 a.m. sharp. I was sitting in the first-class lounge at SeaTac Airport, wrapped in a thick sweater, sipping a mimosa that cost more than Ethan had ever contributed to a dinner bill. On my laptop, a front-row view of everything. They had moved in the night before, just as I predicted, dragging in bags, knocking over lamps, putting their feet on the coffee table like they own the air. My restored hardwood floors were already scratched. Empty pizza boxes stacked on the fake dining table I had planted. The wobbly couch groaned under Ethan's weight as he snored with his mouth open, a smudge of drool spreading beneath his cheek. Harper waddled across the room, hand on her back. "This mattress is awful," she muttered. "It feels like a bag of rocks." Elaine emerged from the kitchen, stirring powdered creamer into coffee. "We'll just buy a new one, once we sell some of this junk." I can't believe she lived like this. No wonder she's single. I smiled behind my glass. "Oh, enjoy it, Mom. It's the last moment you'll ever feel superior." At 10:02 a.m., the front door didn't creak open. It swung wide, unlocked by a key I had handed to Julian's head of security. 3 men in suits stepped in, followed by 6 construction workers in hard hats carrying crowbars and sledgehammers. The room froze. Ethan sat up, dazed, blinking at the intruders like a raccoon caught in a fridge light. "Who the hell are you?" The tallest suit stepped forward. "Marcus Stone, head of security for Apex Development. This property is now an active construction zone. You are trespassing." Victor laughed, that arrogant, huffing laugh he used on waiters and mechanics. "That's funny. My daughter owns this place." "Owned," Stone corrected. Alexa Rivers sold the property on December 26th. The new owner ordered immediate gut renovation. "Demo begins now." He gave a simple nod. The first hammer crashed into the drywall like a gunshot. Dust exploded across the room. "What the hell is this?" Harper shrieked, clutching her stomach. "I'm pregnant. You can't do this." "You have 5 minutes to vacate," Stone said, checking his watch. "After that, anything left becomes debris." "I'm calling the cops." Victor's voice hit a new octave. "This is illegal. We have squatters' rights." "There is no lease," Stone said flatly. "No tenancy. No legal occupation. This is a commercial redevelopment zone. And the police are already on their way to remove you." Crash. Another hammer shattered the kitchen island. I watched it all unfold, not with joy. Not even revenge. It felt more like relief. A clinical sense of balance finally being restored. Engagement break. Have you ever reached a breaking point? That moment where you stopped asking for respect and took it back? Tell me in the comments. And if you've dealt with something similar, share your story. You're not alone. Subscribe for more stories about standing your ground and reclaiming your life. Then it happened. Ethan, oh, clever Ethan, opened the closet door and spotted the boxes. Wait, he yelled. Look, gifts. She left us gifts. He tore open his box, grinning like a child on Christmas morning. Then his face changed. First confusion, then horror. It's a bill, he whispered. It's the crypto loan. She stopped paying. Victor lunged for his own box. Elaine ripped hers open. The sound of tearing wrapping paper mixed with demolition thuds. Their faces twisted as reality hit. Elaine's eyes widened. The credit card, she canceled it. The balance is $4,000. I don't have a doctor anymore, Harper wailed, staring at the insurance termination notice I left inside her box. Outside the chaos, I took another sip of champagne. This wasn't petty. This was justice. The kind of justice the world rarely delivers to people who steal behind smiles. Victor tried to shout over the sound. Where is she? Where's my daughter? She wouldn't do this to us. She loves us. Stone stepped back, untouched by the meltdown. She's gone, he said, brushing Elaine's hand off his coat with the disgust of a man swatting a fly. And then the lights went out. Camera feed. Cut to black. I closed the laptop. It was done. They thought I was their fallback plan, forever forgiving, forever funding. What they didn't realize was that I had retired from the role of family scapegoat. But the story doesn't end here. In the final part, Part 5, you'll hear the letter Harper sent me from a roadside motel and what I did that changed 2 innocent lives forever. You'll want to sit down for this one. Kyoto feels different when it rains. Not heavy like Seattle. Not suffocating. The rain here falls gently, almost respectfully, like it understands silence. I sat on the wooden edge of the machiya I had rented, barefoot, a warm cup of tea between my hands. The air smelled like cedar and tatami mats, clean and grounded. For the first time in years, I felt still. My phone had been on silent for weeks. No buzzing. No guilt. No emergencies disguised as love. That morning, a courier arrived. He bowed politely and handed me an envelope. The handwriting stopped my breath for half a second. Harper. I didn't open it right away. I watched a koi glide through the small stone pond in the garden. Slow. Unbothered. Free. When the tea had cooled, when my hands felt steady, I finally slid a letter opener beneath the seal. Alexa. Mom says we aren't supposed to write to you. Dad says you're dead to us. Ethan says you're heartless. But I need you to know what you did. We were evicted from Ethan's mother's basement 3 months ago. She found the debts. All of them. Turns out Ethan used her name too. She threw us out. We're staying in a motel off the highway now. The boys sleep on the floor. I tried to go to a prenatal appointment, but the insurance was canceled. They laughed at me. Everything is gone. Mom had to go back to work. Retail. She cries every night. Dad's pension is being garnished. Everyone knows. The church. The neighbors. Someone posted the eviction video online. We can't show our faces anywhere. I'm not asking for money. I know you won't help. I just want you to know. You won. Are you happy now? I read it twice. Years ago, those words would have shattered me. I would have rushed to fix things, wired money, apologized for crimes I didn't commit. I would have swallowed the guilt like poison and called it love. But this time, nothing. No rage. No satisfaction. No guilt. Just quiet. Hatred takes energy. Love does too. This was neither. This was the sound of a door closing, softly, permanently. I folded the letter and placed it in the recycling bin beside yesterday's newspaper. Not out of cruelty. Out of acceptance. I hadn't destroyed them. I had simply stopped saving them from themselves. I hadn't sold a condo. I had resigned. I had quit the lifelong job of being the fixer, the buffer, the wallet, the apology machine. I had retired from being their daughter in everything but blood. There was one loose end, though. 2 small ones. I opened my laptop and sent a secure message to my lawyer back in Seattle. Status of the trusts. The reply came fast. Executed. irrevocable. Education and living expenses secured for the boys. Parents have no access. No knowledge. I closed the laptop. My nephews would be okay. They would grow up without learning that love means debt, or that family means sacrifice without end. They would have choices.
Safety.
A future. The rest? The rest was never my responsibility. I looked back out at the garden as the rain tapped softly against the stones. My sanctuary was no longer brick or glass. It couldn't be stolen or invaded. It was peace. It was silence. It was mine. They tried to take my home, so I gave them the only thing they ever truly earned. Consequences. Tell me in the comments. And if you've dealt with something similar, share your story. You're not alone. Subscribe for more stories about standing your ground and reclaiming your life.